Alright, greetings my fellow mushy blobs of universe dust. My name's Hans, overgrown with plants, obsessed with teal bricks, and berserk for Legos. Today I'm going to present to you my Lego City style excavator MOC. So grab your shovels, because we're about to dig into this build. Let's go. Alright, I've been wanting to do an excavator for quite a while, a few years now, and I finally got around to doing it, and here it is, this is it. Now excavators comes in all kinds of sizes, ranging from tiny to massive, and the scale I wanted to do was more of the mid to large size scale, which is something Lego has only done, I think, twice, maybe. So I'm disregarding the smaller excavators that Lego has done. In fact, Lego hasn't given us a Lego City style excavator in a very, very long time. The last one I think was in 2012 in set number 4203, Excavator Transport, and that one didn't have tracks. Instead it had wheels, so wasn't really my thing. I think the best one they did was all the way back in 2005, 17 years ago. Set number 7248 as part of the construction wave sets they did that year. In fact, the last time they've done an entire wave of construction sets was 7 years ago in 2015, and it was kind of small compared to the wave of construction sets that they did in both, I think, 2005 and 2009. So not even in the 80s and 90s in the Lego town sets, in that era, did they ever do a large-scale excavator. If I recall correctly, they did a lot of the little backhoe tractors, but nothing like this. Now Lego does do a bunch of Technic excavators. Seems like every 3 or 4 years they're doing an excavator. The most recent one being 42121, Heavy Excavator, and that actually represents a scale of excavator that's even bigger than this. So again, I've been wanting to do an excavator for several years now. And after doing the tower crane video, I started thinking about the excavator and I was like, I'm gonna do it right now. And I was actually able to develop this pretty quickly. There were some technical challenges that I had to overcome, but yeah, this model came together pretty fast. I was targeting this scale of excavator, and one of the other features that kind of designated this sort of scale was the bucket. And the bucket actually comes directly from the Technic set 42121. And then in regards to the scale also, is that I was basing it off of the Volvo EC350E size excavator, which again is one of their mid-range excavators. Not the really big ones, not the really small ones. Alright, so one of the first things that's going to jump out at you that's super obvious is the color scheme. Yeah, so I think everybody likes to think of construction sets as being yellow or orange, and I completely ignored that. I was like, I'm going to do my own thing. Yeah, so basically I chose teal and then with an accent color of the burnt orange. I like to call it burnt orange, it's a dark orange or whatever. And I actually got the idea from when I was posting a photo on Instagram of this little guy, one of the collectible minifigures, part of the CMF series that was launched in January of this year. It just happened to be standing next to some teal elements and I was like, oh, that kind of works. I felt like experimenting with these two colors on this particular build. This excavator is owned by a private construction company and they have their own color scheme. So not owned by the city. If it was owned by the city, it'd probably be a yellow excavator because, yellow is high visibility for safety. Okay, so two features that go with my usual theme of things. I do a Lego city. It's a tropical city set in the future in the year 2060, and everything is, futuristic tech, and this excavator is no exception. So this runs on electric, it's got some massive batteries in there, and of course battery technology 40 years into the future is going to be a lot more robust than what it is now. It's also got my little robotic sensor on there, which basically represents a autonomous operation mode. It can drive by itself. It can be remotely operated. It can be programmed to do certain tasks. It utilizes AI and machine learning and can kind of learn to do things on its own. But it also has a cab so that it can be manually operated as well. But again, it can be remotely operated, so the operator could be, 5 miles away, sitting in his home, you know, on his computer, and completely operating this thing. So let's talk about the tracks and the base of the excavator. Yeah, I really like how these tracks roll around nice and easy, and one reason for that is because I used the same method that the LEGO designer used in one of the Arctic sets in the last round, which is to put rubber tires as part of the wheels that the tracks roll around on. And that happens to be this guy right here. So here you can see the LEGO designer use the rubber wheels. And this is absolutely genius because what LEGO was always doing before that time absolutely sucked. It was like annoying to me. So this is what LEGO used to do, which is put this giant wheel in the very center of it. It never lined up nice and flush with the tracks. And these things would just kind of were just wobbly, and I didn't like it. It was annoying. I mean, I get why they did that, but yeah. So when this came out, I was like, yes! And I wanted to retrofit this idea to all my vehicles with tracks, which I still plan to do. I've done it to a couple of vehicles. Now on this guy, they actually did a slightly different approach, was to use these two smaller Technic wheels right there, which actually aligns with the tracks a little bit better, but still, like, I prefer that way. So it actually rolls around pretty well. And the reason being that you need a rubber tire is because the surface of these tracks, the hard plastic surface, they don't have a lot of textured frictional surfaces. And so when they're sliding around on like really smooth surfaces, you know, say like the kitchen counter or something, or like a Lego road plate, which those are really smooth, there's no friction, so there's nothing to grab onto. And so these tracks will tend to just not roll, and your vehicle will just kind of slide across the surface, which is no fun for playability. It doesn't really work. So by adding those rubber wheels in there, it adds resistance and helps motivate the tracks to roll around, even on really smooth surfaces. Alright, so when I first started building this, it was actually 2 studs shorter, and I actually started to use the design that I created for my Cargo Master crane over there, but with tracks instead. But I quickly ended up scrapping that idea because a lot of the features didn't carry over, and there was interference with the arm on the excavator. Over here on the front, I actually added a feature so that you could add different accessories. So I've got a shovel that you can add in there, like so. And then on the back of the base, it's just a little tail light. Although, I mean, these things don't really need tail lights because they're not really driving that fast. And this is a brand new printed element coming from LEGO this year. They introduced it on a bunch of the new Friends sets for 2022. They have their electric vehicles and they got this little thing on there. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I'm starting to add this to a lot of my big industrial semi-trucks. I like the trans neon colors because it lights up with the UV light right there. It glows. Adds a little bit of futuristicness to it. And for the cab, I really liked using this windshield piece. You know, I'm always looking for how to make my vehicles as kind of sleek and futuristic looking as possible. Just like I did on my tower crane, I chose a window piece that kind of gives it a futuristic look to it. All right, I moved the light closer, but here you can see the interior. There's the operator. He's got his touch screen, so he's got a lot of digital controls. And I'm actually just using a cell phone printed piece in there. And then of course we've got his little joystick, which he operates the whole tractor. He's got large windows for easy visibility. And just attach that guy right in there like that. Got the usual warning lights. In fact, I probably got 2 mini warning lights. I got the hazard stripe right there. I like to use white underneath my transparent bricks because the white reflects more light through the transparent bricks. It makes them stand out more. And I was able to get a teal colored cabinet on here. There's a little chain in there. Got a little stowaway right there. Now the turret, I kind of beefed it up a bit. I've got a brick in there that has an axle going through it to basically help reinforce it, because a lot of forces can be just so that it can handle the weight of all this stuff without popping off. All right, so another thing I noticed when I was looking at real life excavators is that the excavator arm is coming out of the very center of the whole body of it. And so you got cab on one side, you got the arm coming out of the very center, and then you got more of the body over here. As an engineer, I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Now these excavators are designed to handle a lot of force for digging into the ground and lifting and doing all that stuff. And so if this arm is off center from the center of the base, it's going to put a twist of forces, a moment or rotation of forces to act on the whole excavator itself. And so that imbalance is not really beneficial to the operation of the excavator. But I can't really do that because at this scale, I would need to go with a bigger body, and I wanted to just keep it at 8 studs wide. Now the other thing is up here at the top, I wanted to have a more sleek look to it, and I wanted to have these guys here, but I didn't have these in either teal nor the burnt orange, so it didn't really work. I was a little disappointed about that, but I did come up with this alternate design here, so it's got a little bit of slope right there, and then I'm using these wedge plates as well as car hood right there for some nice design. The other thing I noticed too is that on the real life excavators, back end is bulky and hefty, and I'm pretty sure that's because they've got a large diesel motor in there. But because this is an electric excavator, it doesn't need to house that giant motor. So I wanted to keep this a little on the slim side, a much more sleeker look. Okay, let's talk about the arm. So all excavators, the primary arm has a bend in it. And so I wanted to do the same thing. When it comes to Lego sets, what they do is really weak sauce. Now what Lego does in a lot of their Lego sets is they use the click hinges to emulate the bend in it. But the problem is with that, this is one solid piece right here. And with Lego is that this is a click hinge joint, and so it gets confusing as to what's designed to move and what's designed to be solid. And if you look at the original sets, the other two excavator sets, it's just a bunch of these bricks with the click hinges, and so there's no discerning feature as to what is designed to be a permanent solid bend and what's designed to be a rotational joint. And so that's actually kind of always bugged me, the Lego sets. It's like, this is not realistic. To make the excavator arm, I'm using the focus. I'm using a Lego brick that has studs on both sides. And I've got them kind of lined up right here in the very middle, and then I've got a stack of plates, and then on top of that I've got a stack of tiles right there. And I did that for these two, and then at the 45-degree bend, I'm actually using 2 hinge plates. It's only held in there by the 2 hinge plates. And for the secondary arm piece, I'm actually using the new Technic beam, which is the new flip-flop beam that just came out. So it's got pinholes on both sides, alternating. So that really came in handy. Now, one of my favorite features of this excavator is the reach and extendability of this arm. So in full up mode, this thing, it can actually reach all the way up to the 4th floor. Let's show you guys. Yeah, so the 4th floor. And I've just built this really quickly just for this video, but actually I'm kind of liking the style of this. I might just keep it around and maybe turn it into a real building in Paradisa City eventually. Alright, so the other impressive thing about the reach of this is the fact that by having this arm extend so far out and so high up, so even if I go really far out, notice how the arm can hold itself, and the excavator can hold this arm without tipping over or falling over. So the hydraulics are doing their job, the joints are doing their job, and then the excavator, it's doing its job. Now, one reason why the excavator isn't tipping over due to the weight of this really long reach is because in the very back of the body, I embedded a Lego weight back there. Yep. So when I first started building this, it was just kind of falling over, and back here in the back, I've actually got a Lego weight in there. So this thing's actually pretty hefty, but the weight keeps it weighted down. Now the other technical challenge is the hydraulics. Being able to not only hold all this weight, but also having the extendability that it needs to have. So the movement of the bucket or the scoop required the most amount of extendable hydraulic range because it has the widest range of movement. I mean, it almost has to go 180 degrees. This guy, not quite so much. It only has to move just a short amount. And then these guys. Now these guys, I needed to make them extra robust because these guys are supporting the whole weight of the arm practically. So one thing you'll notice is that I'm using Technic axles for these hydraulic rams, and I'm only using Lego system bars for these hydraulic rams. And the bar system has a little bit less of a grip to it, so less friction, but it's just enough to hold this guy. Now, this doesn't have enough friction. If I was to add some weight in there, so maybe piles of bricks in there, and then extend this all the way out as far as it can go, this would slip loose and it would not hold it. But this guy here, I needed to use the Technic axles because they have a little bit more of a friction than this, and then I needed to use 2 of them. And that's actually something you'll see in real life, is that the excavators actually have double hydraulics for the main primary arm. Now, I was really happy to have discovered this little method right here, which is using the pneumatic T-shaped bar into the Technic beam right there, and then did that the same thing over there. And that's what really helped give me the extendable range that I needed. All right, so let's talk about a major pet peeve of mine, and this is something that I've been kind of running up against quite often now in a lot of my builds. So anytime I'm using the hydraulic rams, so this is the Lego system version, and this is the Technic hydraulic ram version. The problem that I'm running into is that these have forces that are acting that way, and so there's the push and pull, right? And there really isn't a good way to attach a pivot point to these axles without that sliding back and forth on the axle. You want this to slide, but you don't want this to come off and come loose. Now, Lego pretty much designed this to be used with this, so this does have a stop. So when it comes to forces that are pulling it apart, this little stopper right there can handle that. But when it comes to forces being pushed in, what ends up happening is that whatever you have connected here slips. And so you then have to use an extra bushing to add an extra friction to keep it from slipping. But as was the case with my Cargo Master crane over there, under extreme heavy loads, even that's not enough. And by adding more of these bushings, you lose travel distance. That's been a real pain for me to have to deal with. All right, and so one thing that I had to do for this excavator was to use this Technic connector right there. And this only slides onto the Technic axle and is held on there with friction basically, but it's in the direction of the forces, right? And so if you pull on it hard enough, it'll just pop right off, which is no good. And this has a lot of friction in there. And then of course this is being held on by friction. I had a bunch of these that were slipping. And so what I ended up having to do was I had to do a bunch of trial and error. I literally had to go into my parts bin and kind of test over and over and find one of these that was extra tight, that was tighter than usual. And so what I think Lego needs to do is something similar to this, which is to create an axle that has this transverse pin connector already built onto the axle itself. And maybe they just need to make like 2 different lengths, like this length, and then maybe like a slightly longer length. That would solve a lot of the issues. Now I also had the same exact problem with these guys too. So I had the bar, and I literally had to go into my parts drawer and was test fitting these guys. And I actually wanted to use these silver little robot arms up here, but it turns out all the silver ones didn't have a strong enough grip. And so I guess the batch of gray ones, the dark gray ones that I had the strongest grip to these bars right there. So yeah, hey Lego, it'd be kind of cool if you could just make a Technic axle that has this transverse pin, kind of like this guy, but you know, it's an axle. The other thing about using this particular axle with this hydraulic ram is you can't connect something centrally like this, you know, through here without having to do an extra step or add an extra intermediate piece in there to do the cross mounting. You know, in Technic sets, that's usually not a problem because there's tons of space in Technic sets, typically. But in Lego City sets, everything's compactified and you're trying to get everything to fit in a very small scale. And so having to add an extra intermediate piece has often been ruinous for the design that I'm trying to create. All right, so my other favorite feature of this excavator is the bucket, and that is the fact that the bucket can actually rotate around. Now, most excavators can't do this. I would imagine that this is pretty expensive add-on feature for excavators, but I actually saw a real-life excavator that had a rotatable bucket, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So this excavator can actually like scoop things sideways. But yeah, rotatable bucket This is one of my favorite features. So it could even, you can even like scoop things up this way. Totally cool. So the other thing I wanted to do was to hide the hydraulic rams, embed them into the arms as much as possible so they didn't stick way out. And it took quite a bit of design alterations and stuff like that, but I was able to pull it off. So I'm pretty happy with that. So as far as this little gray piece is concerned, LEGO hasn't produced this in the dark teal until now. Finally. I've actually been wanting these pieces, the left and right piece in the teal, for quite a long time. It's actually on the new Mercedes Speed Champion set. So I ordered some, yeah. So definitely my top favorite features is the rotatable bucket, the counterweight in the very back, and just how reliable the hydraulic rams are, and being able to hold itself up without falling over. Although I do wish that I could add a little more weight. Like even if I was to put like 5 or 6 bricks inside the bucket, then it would just kind of fall over. But I'm absolutely loving this excavator design, and I think it's something that LEGO hasn't really done very well, and definitely hasn't done it in quite a while. And if you want to imagine this to be in all yellow, yeah, go ahead and imagine it as yellow. It would look good in yellow. It would. I just chose teal. But sorry, I just chose teal and burnt orange. I'm kind of liking this color. Another thing that I need to do is to build a transport trailer for this excavator. Yeah, I hope you guys like my excavator as much as I do. Let me know what your favorite features are in the comments below. I'm still working on a ton of other MOCs. Progress on the city is not nearly as fast as I would like. I'm still working on the boutique hotel. It's kind of coming along together. Still got another parts order that I'm waiting for, because I forgot to order it. Terrible. But I do have a bunch of other vehicles, so I'm going to be plaguing you guys with a bunch of other vehicle MOCs. I've got my semi-trucks and trailers, as well as I did an update to my shipping containers. But my semi-trucks, I came up with a standard way of doing the hitch that I can do videos on. I got the dump truck, I got the Smith truck. I can do a video on police cars, and then I'm also going to be doing a video pretty soon on the upgrades to the cranes that I've done, the new mobile crane from January. And I think I can even do a video on the exotic LEGO colors. So I've got a car in the metallic gold and a metallic silver and the coral, and if you see my post on my Instagram, which the link is down below, I do post photos of some of my vehicle builds that you don't see here on my YouTube channel. Oh, and I just did a car MOC in the new vibrant yellow, so that's looking really cool. I'm really liking that one. So yeah, I've got a number of vehicles that I can do videos on, which I will be for the next few videos, and of course I'm still working on a bunch of other projects. So stay tuned, and I'll check you guys later.